So with the Lord Street redevelopment court case is just another straw on the camel's back, whereby we have this giant scar in the middle of our town. If that site had been bombed, no one could tell the difference. It was literally in ruins and rubble there and across the road, and each of those sites adjacent to the Lord Street car park. And the fact that it is literally in ruins in the middle of our town, people get off the boat, it's the centre of our town, it should be the most glorious hotspot of activity and life and business and entertainment and residential and everything. And that should be the icon of the Isle of Man, right in the centre of town, but instead it's literally in ruins. And to learn that there's now £90 million at stake in this court case is scary to me as a taxpayer of the Isle of Man, because it means that I suspect that the government officials who made this decision are not going to be held to account. And yet again, it's going to be the Manx taxpayer who's going to have to fork out the money, if this goes even more pear-shaped than it already is. So I live a couple hundred metres from this site, and every day I walk past and I see the missed opportunities in that really construction should have started a decade ago. People should be living there, building there, and so on. And not only would that be a great site for the benefit of our island, if we put homes in there, that would reduce the strain on the urban sprawl of the Isle of Man. It'd make housing more accessible to people, whether that be first home buyers, but also last home buyers. And so one of the things that I hear from a lot of more mature residents of the Isle of Man is that they might live in a nice 3, 4, 5 bedroom place, but they can't find an apartment or a home that is suitable for them in their older age because we simply don't have enough such accommodation. Wouldn't it be great to have some modern apartments that were safe, that were high quality in the middle of town, so people could walk, people could walk to their local shops, could walk to local restaurants. And at the same time, not only would they be good housing for the people who move into such places, but in addition, it would also be a benefit for people who moved into the houses that they vacate throughout the rest of the Isle of Man. So the Isle of Man is fundamentally a rural/regional community. And right across the Western world, people, when they finish high school at 16, 17, 18, whereabouts, they move to big cities for jobs, for adventures, for career, for study, for love, for all sorts of different reasons. And that applies to little country towns in remote Texas. It applies to little country towns in England and Wales. It applies to little country towns in Australia. And so I lived in a town called Wangaratta, which is roughly as remote as it sounds. It had a population, I think at the time, 20 or 30,000 people thereabouts. And it was very clear that when young people finished their high school, they'd go to the cities, but then they would come back in their later 20s to build families, to grow their own little community teams. And it'd be wonderful for people to be able to come to the Isle of Man and to be able to afford housing, which is why we need to build housing. So the current ratio is that the average property on the Isle of Man goes for about 8 to 9 times an average wage on the Isle of Man. That is a huge increase compared to 25 years ago. And if we provided enough housing, that'd become much more affordable. And so that ratio of wage to housing is a pretty internationally comparable metric. And so the Isle of Man is not as bad as Zone 1 of London or Hong Kong or Singapore or Manhattan. But it is right up there with some of the most expensive cities in the world, like Miami or others. And that is really challenging. And so there's an opportunity, that site, those scars that we have in the middle of our biggest town or biggest city now in the Isle of Man, should be modern, high-quality housing. It'd be good for the environment because people wouldn't have to commute so much. The housing would be much more modern and therefore have much lower energy costs and heating requirements and so on. And also it'd be good for people who work with their hands. And so when we have all these government decisions made by the lanyard or laptop class, we need to give a bit of consideration for people who work with their hands. And it'd be great to have more jobs for bricklayers and plasterers and plumbers and electricians and people who make things, rather than people who just tell others how to live their lives. And so the Manx Taxpayers Alliance exists to bring transparency and openness to these government activities so that we can get better decisions and better outcomes, so that we can get the potholes fixed, so that we can get the people saved, their lives saved by the health service, and so that people can get cheaper fares on the boat and other important life experiences on the Isle of Man. The Lord Street project represents a real risk to the people of the Isle of Man, because if the Isle of Man government loses the court case for big chunks of money, then that puts the safety and the security of people's lives at risk. And so the Manx Taxpayers Alliance strongly supports the idea of being transparent here, and also ensures that we get good value for money. And so an obvious way of doing that is to hold government officials accountable.